What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got a lovely new Transformers TCG character card that we need to be taking a little bit of a look at. It is Windcharger, and shout out to the lovely folks over at vectorsigma.info. They were the ones that broke this, and you know me rule by now. Do make sure that you go and give them a little bit of love, because we want to give some love to the people that reveal these cards. Also, it's a brilliant strategy website, and if you're into the Transformers TCG and you're not checking out the articles on Vector Sigma, maybe you should be. So Windcharger then, what do we get? Well, it's another super rare, so the super rares are coming thick and fast. And it's a melee car, two of my favourite traits. And we start off with a 7-cost character, which is on the one hand very low, which is nice, and on the other hand, remember we've got a lot of low-cost cars at the moment, so I think in order to compete, the cars have got to be kinda cheap. So I'm all in favour of this. In terms of stats, they're slightly lower than we'd like on an 8-cost, but it's a 7-cost. Health of 11, attack of 3 or 4, defense of 1 or 2. Not particularly inspiring stats, but probably about what we would want from a 7-cost. Okay. Now, the thing that really interests me about Windcharger is the alt mode skill. I know we usually start in bot mode. I'm changing it up. I'm starting alt mode. This has +3 attack during your first turn of the game. And on the one hand, I adore this. I think it's great. And on the other hand, you got one turn before it becomes vanilla. Now it says your first turn of the game, not this character's first attack of the game. So what that means is you need to take advantage of this now. It pretty much, if you want to take advantage of the skill at least, locks you into your first attack with Windcharger. If you attack with anybody else on your first turn, gutted. You lose that skill. Now remember the rules. In the Transformers trading card game, you are only allowed to attack tapped characters unless your opponent has no tapped characters, in which case you basically get your choice of who to attack, assuming there's nothing in play like Stealth or Brave or any of that. So if you go first, this is a way better skill, because if you go first, you get a free choice to attack whoever you want. You're not playing any cards, unfortunately, but neither has your opponent played any cards. So they've got their natural defense with no secret actions, no upgrades or whatever. You've got your natural attack with no boosts of any kind. And you've got an attack of 7, which is brilliant. This I like very much indeed, but it's only for one turn. Now if you go second, it's not quite as good. On the one hand, you do get to play an upgrade or an action. That's lovely. On the other hand, your opponent will have had a turn, and they will have finished their turn with an attack. Attacking is not optional in this game, you have to attack. And that means that your opponent will only have one tapped character, which means your opponent will only have one valid target, which means that they can basically make you attack who you want. And they can, unfortunately, which is a bit of a pain. They can lock you into it. They can basically say, right, here's how you are going to be attacking. And if they see that you're starting off with a Windcharger, they can decide who you attack into. You go first, yes. Your opponent goes first, less yes. Moving over into bot mode here, when you flip to this mode, draw a card, then plan one. Yeah, this I like an awful lot more. Now, you don't gain a card advantage here. You don't have more cards when you finish than when you started. You finish this interaction with the same number of cards that you started. If you've got a hand of 4, you flip Windcharger, use the ability, you've still got a hand of 4. But there's two things that are happening here. Number 1, you get to draw a card. It might be the action or upgrade you're looking for. Number 2, you get to plan 1, which means if you're going to be attacking and you happen to have an improvised shield in your hand, let's face it, improvised shield is not a card we really play for anything other than the double orange icons. tough 1 is not phenomenal. You draw into it, you don't really want to attach it as an armor. You will sometimes if you're playing some blue icons, but most of the time you don't. It's there for the orange icons. So you plan 1, you put it on top of your deck, and I love this. It is access to plan whenever you need it. It means that at any point, you can go, oh, I've got a double orange icon card in my hand. Let's do this. That's what I love about this. You do need to be flicking back and forth quite a lot here, which is a little bit of a pain. But the good news is you are a car, you've got Start Your Engines, and I think Start Your Engines works beautifully with this character. There will be times where you actually do want to be in alt mode, even though you're essentially a vanilla character, because you've got the attack of 4 rather than 3. But here, if you want to be reusing your skill, you can play Start Your Engines to flip all of your characters into car mode, then use your flip for the turn, this turn or next, it doesn't matter, to activate Windcharger's skill. So in that regard, I do kind of like it. I like this skill more on a car, although with things like Hunker Down, it's not just cars, but I want it with a card like Hunker Down or Start Your Engines more than I do like a helicopter, for instance, or a Dino Bot. I love Dino Bots. But you want to be flipping more often if you've got a skill like this. Now, the other thing to think about here is it's only a 7-cost character. It is probably not going to be central to your deck. What this character does is 2 things, and it does them beautifully. Big hit turn 1, draw a card and plan for the rest of the game. And that's all right. That ain't bad for 7 stars. Now, the other thing to think about is you are a melee character here. So, assuming you go second, so you're allowed to play an action or an upgrade, maybe you play something like Power Sword or Grenade Launcher. Grenade Launcher, you don't need to be a melee character. Power Sword, you do. And then try and get a really big attack. Going first is nice, because it means you get a free hit on whoever, and they've not been able to play any cards. But going second can also be quite nice, because although your opponent chooses who you attack, they still haven't played any cards. And you can play 1 card, but it can be something like a Grenade Launcher or a Power Sword, and that's kind of beautiful. But this card actually has its own stratagem as well. All Out. 1-star stratagem like all of the ones we've seen so far. Once per game, when your Windcharger Autobot Warrior attacks, and is your only character on the battlefield, he gets +3 attack until end of turn, and you flip it. The reason for flipping is very simple. It turns it into a 1-shot deal. You get to use this once during the game, and that's it. This is awesome. This is worth a star as far as I'm concerned. I love this. This is basically your Hail Mary, and I'm a big fan of this. In any card game, I am a really big fan. I talk about this in videos for all games. I don't have much of a chance to win. Let's try something unlikely. I like to have that option for the end of the game to just go a bit nuts. And here you do. Because you've still got a natural attack of 4. So you basically reactivate that skill to go up to an attack of 7. Except now you're late in the game, so hopefully you have got a Power Sword on there. Attack of 7, bold 3. And you could go further here. You could play a Supercharge, which would give you another bold 3. Or you could play Leap into Battle to give yourself +3 attack, if that's what you were into. As many different things you could do here. The point is, it gives you 1 big attack, and I think that's what you save it for. Well, no, there's 2 reasons you save it. 1 big attack for the end, or I'm going to get a KO here. It basically gives you a Leap into Battle, just sitting off to the side, so that at one point during the game you can go, hang on a second, I think I'm going to be 1 to 3 damage short of a KO here. Time to bust out All Out. It's really nice. It's really nice. And of course, you could always pair it with something like All Out of Attack to give you extra attacks and extra attack, and really start going after your opponent. It means until you flip over your stratagem, your opponent will spend the entire game being a little bit on edge, never knowing when you're going to actually flip it over, and that's going to create a little bit of mind games. It's going to make your opponent play a little bit more defensively than they would, Because now every time they're sitting there doing the calculations, trying to figure out what's actually going to happen, they've always got to do it knowing that you can do +3 attack whenever you want. That's what I love about this. It turns it into an 8-star character, and I don't know if this is going to make its way into every card deck straight away, but I absolutely do think that there is a lot here that you can hang your hat on, and for that, I'm a little bit excited. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy. That's where we talk Transformers and a whole bunch of other games. And please do make sure you're checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all that good stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would you? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wassy Plays.